everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. You know the score by now. All things Eagles related from the last 7 days, broken down, condensed, chopped up, put onto one big Fiesta Bowl and given to you by a high-pitched British guy. If you're wondering how your life has got to this point where you're listening to a borderline Richter scale audio level into your ears talking about the Eagles, now's the time to subscribe to it. We are on iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Inside an Orange Peel, wherever. We're basically everywhere except Google Play, although we have submitted a request for it, so we're baby stepping on that front. But it's been a bit of a quiet week, hasn't it, for Philadelphia Eagles news? I mean, it's to the point where I think the biggest headline over the last 7 days has been Jalen Mills went to a Sixers game wearing a bulletproof vest that wasn't bulletproof, which defies the whole object of a bulletproof vest, and he just slapped a dollar bill in his chest, and I don't know why he did that, and I don't know what he's trying to prove, other than that he has a single... Now, I mean, to be fair, my understanding of the American economy, very limited. I mean, that could have been a $100 bill, it could have been a $1,000 bill, if that's a thing, but that's a lot of currency for a single bit of paper, and if that blows off in the wind in the parking lot, I don't think he's going to be very happy. So, it's a poorly advised fit, it wasn't his best move, and I think he's had better outfits on the field when he's playing in man coverage. So, I mean, I would take the chicken level flex celebration he does over that fit. So come on, Jalen, you got to do better than that. But that doesn't mean there isn't news to celebrate, and we've got to start off with a couple of big announcements. Some of them soppy, some of them silly, and then we're going to get into your questions that you submitted on Twitter and some interesting draft predictions as well. Originally, I said I was going to do this podcast with alcohol. And I've kind of agreed. I've kind of gone back on it a bit because I feel like Lambrini Liam can only be brought out in the most remarkable of occasions, and it's not quite there yet. Maybe the first live podcast in Philadelphia, maybe that's when we'll bring him out. But at the minute, it would just be me slurring, going, "Hey guys, Eagles, and call them back in the NFL draft." And I don't think that'll be good. It's either that or getting quite emotional about Ronald Darby, and I think we've heard enough of that over the last few weeks. But we need to talk about a brief apology. And it's not related to Ronald Darby, unfortunately. For those of you expecting me to go back on my assumptions of his tackling, it's not going to happen. Not this week. But for the last month or so, I've been pounding the table to get your reviews on this podcast, because that's how this podcast grows, right? So if you're on iTunes or Spotify or wherever, and you can leave a 5-star review, that's amazing. That would mean the world to me. And I thought that the podcast had no reviews for this entire time. And we're in year 5 now. I know it's gone under a big change recently. But year 5, I've had like 8 reviews, no written reviews though. Like all ratings, no reviews. I was a bit upset. So I was like, come on, someone's got to like it enough to submit a review somewhere. There has to be one person that doesn't absolutely detest it. And then I got one, and it made my day. And then someone tweeted me saying, actually, there's loads. So I got a bit confused, and I have to apologise because I didn't realise, which is a bit silly really, considering that my now former job was working for Apple, that I didn't know there was a separate iTunes store that had different reviews. I thought it was one big unified library. So in America, where it makes sense that the podcast is based, it's had like 45 reviews and a bunch of comments and everyone being really lovely and loads of LJ mentions and stuff like that. And in England, it's only got 1. So just thank you so much, because I had no idea that there were that many reviews. I was able to read every single one, and I did get a little bit soppy and emotional. So just thank you so much if you've been listening to this podcast and you have been leaving reviews. I wasn't purposely ignoring them. I was just a bit silly and didn't realise there were 2 iTunes stores. But if you haven't left a review, that would be cool. If you could go and, click those 5 stars and say how great LJ is. That would be fantastic. But the big news this week, the big soppy news, and why we're cranking out the Thatcher's Gold, which if you're in America, we've got to do it now, ready, live. This is there it goes. That is a cold one with the boys, and by with the boys, I mean it's myself in Harry Potter's cupboard talking about 5 bold predictions for the NFL draft. However, there have been 2 occasions this week. I am recording this podcast on a Thursday evening, which is rare for me because normally it comes out on a Friday. The issue with this is that I have a very funny feeling something big is going to happen on the one day off I actually take. Like, I don't do days off. I'm like, you know, the whole Bill Belichick thing, it's not really my mentality. But because I'll be turning 24 years old, we're celebrating the fact that I'll be 24 and I still look and sound like a 15-year-old. So what's not to celebrate? I'll be away for the next couple of days, just kind of getting a little bit tipsy, probably a bit soppy, and just celebrating another year survived more than anything. So that's why the podcast is being recorded early, because I'm away on Friday. So hopefully, nothing drastic happens. But in the event it does, here's a pre-planned reaction. Oh my god, that trade was great. Oh my god, that trade sucked. Wow, the Eagles are going to win it all. Howie Roseman is a god. I don't know how he keeps moving salary cap space. Wow, another contract extension? Oh my god, how does he keep finding all this money? Here's an anecdote about a girl that shouldn't be mentioned in this podcast, but somehow comes up every single week. There you go. That is the full list of outside insider bingo for now. So you can tick those off just in case. So if something does happen tomorrow, go back 5 minutes 30 seconds in and you've got every single reaction you could possibly need to said piece of very exciting or damning news. But the other reason for celebration is essentially because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure many of you are aware by now if you follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkins21. If you've been watching the YouTube channel, there was a super soppy video out there. But I've quit my old job this week, so I handed my notice in on Monday, which means as of, I believe, the 14th, but technically kind of next week, I will be a full-time whatever this is. Now, I don't know what this is. It's kind of like an Eagles writer, but I talk a little bit, and I make filming videos, and I shout a lot. So I just basically, this role at Philly Sports Network and running my company full-time, which is still kind of amazing to me. Like, it hasn't actually set in just yet as to how much that's going to change my life by not having to go to work and get an hour train and it mess up my day and miss certain events and things like that. So a lot of that honestly has to do with the growth of this podcast. And you guys especially, the hardcore listeners who open up YouTube and stare at a blank screen or leave it on in the background at work. I had someone the other day comment saying that his girlfriend asked what he's listening to and he says his favourite Eagles channel. And I cried at that, because if there is actually someone Netflix and chilling to this podcast, that's new levels reached. I mean, we can go ASMR if we want to, but that's pretty big. So just thank you. Like, again, I've said this a lot over the last 6 months, but I made a big change to this podcast probably towards the end of last season, maybe like September, October time, where I got bored of trying to be something that I wasn't, or trying to make it so bland and, I guess, analytical based. And I wanted to just have fun with it and be me. And we're now 8 minutes in, and the most Eagles thing we've spoken about is Jalen Mills with a $sign on his chest. So it has been very much about changing this podcast into something that's a bit more personable, a bit more relatable, something where I can share, I suppose, a bit more of me with you as opposed to just words on a page or very, film-related jargon. To actually just have fun, sit down for 40 minutes, get a bit silly, talk about the Eagles and have some fun with it. It's been the best decision I've made. Like, I've never had so much fun creating podcasts, and seeing the reaction that you guys have, it means everything to me. And to know that it took a lot internally, I think, to kind of overcome that and say, hey, I'm comfortable enough in myself to just be totally me. Like, how I am in this podcast is how I am in real life. I'm this socially awkward in real life. I'm just a lot taller than you probably imagine and a lot ganglier. The lamppost analogy, if you will. So to put that on a platform where so many of you are listening now, and for the most part, you don't hate it, that's really cool. And it just means a lot, because this podcast wouldn't be going once a week. And hey, now it's full time. Maybe you get episodes every single day. Maybe it's 2 days. Maybe it's twice a week. But the area for content, we're going to have call-ins now. I can invest in technology that's going to allow us to have people call in live to the show. Maybe we can stream it live with video. Maybe we can have highlights. There's so much more we can do with this podcast. And that's all because of you. That's all because of you listening. It's because of the LJ memes. It's because of the comments. It's because of your support. And just from the bottom of my heart, truly, thank you so much, because I couldn't imagine what this podcast would be. Actually, I could imagine what it would be like without the support, and it wouldn't be anything special. And to me, this is one of the most special things I do, because it's just me. And yeah, I wouldn't be in this spot without any of you. So thank you. I promise it's just the beginning. We're going to have a lot of exciting things planned for this podcast in the future. Hopefully, that involves a Cravon LeBlanc interview as well. Who knows? I'm a little bit disappointed though, there was no Eagles news this week. We just have a can of cider, which I didn't realise Americans aren't fond of. You know, in England, everyone has cider, apple cider. I didn't realise there was non-alcoholic cider and then cider. It's just cider over here. Everyone just summer evening on a bench with a can of cider, and that's the British summertime dream right there. And you guys don't have that. It's just all beer. Like, where's the fruit, guys? Where's the apple? Come on, get it involved. Shake it up a little bit here. The problem is now, ladies and gentlemen, okay, is I have had approximately 3 sips of cider at 4.8% alcoholic volume, which means I am basically drunk at this stage. And without much Eagles news to talk about, I'm like, well, what do I do? So, I've got 2 lists for you, along with the classic thank you next situation. We know that thank you next is your favourite part of the show, although someone said less Ariana Grande, more Meek Mill, which is fine, but Meek Mill doesn't have a song called Thank You Next, which defeats the object of the idea, really. And I think that, if I go to Meek Mill's sort of songs, I can't think of one which involves a plot of taking your questions and answering them. I don't know a song title. If you can think of a Meek Mill song that embodies me taking on a question, answering it quickly, and moving on to said next question, I will happily rename that segment of the show to make it Philly related. But until then, somehow, Dreams and Nightmares, I guess, kind of fits, because some of the questions about, wives leaving and stuff is classic, and that's just Dreams and Nightmares in one. But maybe, Going Bad, no. Tap, that's a Nav song. Litty, we're just not doing it. If we want to go through the Wins and Losses album, let's have a quick look at songs there. For Glow Up. Hey guys, welcome to Glow Up. It just doesn't have the same, Made It From Nothing. That's Price. We'll call it Price. So, sorry, Ariana's got to stay. Anyway, onto the list. So I've got 2 for you, and what one are we going to have first? We have got ranking the Eagles' moves of the offseason so far. I'm really sorry there's been 12 minutes of absolute drivel on this podcast. I'm very sorry. We've also then got bold predictions for the Eagles in the NFL draft, and there are 5 of those. In between them, we'll have thank you next. But we're going to start off with my ranking of every Eagles off-season signing or big move so far. And there are 9 that qualify. We're going from, of course, Jordan Howard to Vinny Curry to Andrew Sunday. Oh! Sorry for any ear bleeds there. To LJ Fort, to everything. Who do you think... if I was to tell you to guess, what is my worst ranked move of the Eagles? Just... out of thin air, pluck a guess, pluck a wild feather off a bird, pluck a random peacock feather and you tell me the colour, because I guarantee you won't be shocked, it's Ronald Darby. That is still the Eagles' worst piece of business of the offseason so far, and I don't care why, because to me, you can justify every other move with far more positive rationale without negative setbacks than you can Ronald Darby. Because hell, even LJ Fort doesn't hamper the development of guys beneath him on the depth chart. He doesn't hamper what could be a long-term vision. There is just a short-term fix. That's it. He's missed 15 games in 2 years. He can't tackle. Oh, but he's really quick, Liam, and he's got dreadlocks, so he has to be good. Brilliant, but I don't think that means that is suddenly the best thing possible for this team. That is still worse than every other move of this offseason so far to date. So we're going to move on to the next bit, which is the next best move out of 9, I believe. So number 8 on this list is LJ. And I don't mean me. I don't mean that I've just signed with the Eagles, because we know I haven't. But I've signed with Philly Sports Network, but that's my own company, so I haven't done that either. But LJ Fort, I think that to me is a hugely underrated signing so far, purely because the Eagles need some linebacker, insurance policies. And although Paul Warrellow's coming back, Fort has got the ability to play outside and inside. He's got incredible special teams value. He had a really good season in Jacksonville. There are a couple of standout games. You haven't got round to a film room just yet. But hey, now I'm a full-time Eagles shouter man. Maybe there will be one in the next couple of days. So LJ Fort for me takes a little bit of the strain off finding an immediate impact player. It adds some value to Fick's prestigious special teams unit. I don't see how that's a bad move in any way. It's cheap, it's cheerful, he's young, he's productive, he's got my initials, and he's not hampering the growth of anyone around him. Next up at number 7, are you ready? Who do you think it's going to be? There's a few names left yet. it's penning Brandon Graham to a 3-year contract extension. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a big Brandon Graham guy, and after a 9.5 sack campaign last year, many assumed the Eagles would have struck while the iron was red hot, but they didn't. They allowed him to play out his contract year. He ended up getting 4 sacks, so his production declined a bit. He was playing through injury, so the Eagles have cashed in. It's worked out well for them, but I do think it's a smart move, but I think it could be too little too late. They signed him at the perfect time. Pass rushers are becoming a premium, and if you look at kind of elsewhere, with deals being reported to be much higher, I think Graham, who's always wanted to remain in Philadelphia at 30 years old, the Eagles got him in a really good spot right now. However, and there is a however, I think that there could be a slight collision course depending on how the team view Vinny Curry over Derek Barnett, because if Curry and Graham become the starters and Barnett still isn't, which is possible, it's not out of the equation just yet, that's going to raise question marks over Derek Barnett. But I do feel like it's a strong move. You get 3 more years of Brandon Graham, who's likely now going to end his career in Philadelphia. You look at, I mean, even his final season under Chip Kelly, where he ended up having a career-high 51 tackles and 6.5 sacks. The man has done everything the Eagles have asked him to do. He's changed scheme, he's changed position, he's come down, he's gone up, he's done everything. The payday should have come sooner. That's the only reason it's not slightly higher on this list. I think they've left it a bit too late. But in terms of monetary value, from a financial and a business perspective, this is a home run here. The only reason it's not higher from that regard is that there were better moves in that vein. And next up on the list is the signing of Richard Rodgers. You didn't see that one coming. You thought that would be below Ronald Darby? Well, shame on you, because the return of 13 personnel to this offense means far much more than I think a starting cornerback does when you've already got 2 or 3 beneath them. Like, the Eagles have 2 tight ends on their roster, and Josh Perkins. Richard Rodgers coming back from injury, I think is going to have a tremendous impact. When you look at how the offense worked last year, or 2017 I should say, with Brent Selleck, with Zach Ertz, with Trey Burton, there was a different dynamic there, and 13 personnel sets were absolutely vital when it comes to establishing the run, and of course getting those tight ends open as well. So this will only open things up further for Ertz. It will only enhance Dallas Goedert's value, and just imagine, like I said last podcast, a 13 personnel set with a Jordan Howard run behind 3 tight ends. That would be the dream. I do think, there is some downside to this move. I think the Eagles could still draft a tight end, but at the end of the day, the Eagles normally carry 4. They had 2 on the roster at the end of the season. Depth was tested. Dallas Goedert literally missed the opening 3 games for no reason, and no one can understand why it literally took a Josh Perkins 63-yard game against the Buccaneers to get him on the field. But at cornerback, if the Eagles lost Ronald Darby, you've still got Avonte Maddox, you've still got Sidney Jones, and you've still got Rasul Douglas. I don't think that Ronald Darby move was a necessity. I think the return of Richard Rodgers is cheap enough to provide immediate value without a million question marks. To me, that just opens up what the Eagles can do. And hey, the guy's got over 1,000 career receiving yards as well, which certainly doesn't hurt. Next up on the list, we're up to Mambo number 5, I think, unless my math is very terrible. Andrew Sendejo! I've got to stop. I need to stop doing that. It's just not going to end well. But the former Minnesota Viking had a career year in 2017 and set off good. There you go, there's a phrase for you. He had a good start in 2018 prior to the groin injury that kept him out for the end of the year. Now, the Vikings found their replacement underneath him during that time, found a cheaper deal as well, and Sendejo comes in and hits hard. And let's be honest here, that's an immediate improvement over Corey Graham. That doesn't take much. I think me and my 38.9-inch vertical could have been an improvement over Corey Graham at this point. And if we look at what Sendejo does, what he brings to the table, it perfectly balances McLeod's slightly more methodical, more well-rounded skill set, and if you're going to factor Avonte Maddox in there, his ball-hawking, rangy cornerback skill set, although it's a little bit shorter. So I think having that hard hitter that can come down and thump in the run game, get dirty in the box, and maybe even back up Malcolm Jenkins inside as that kind of inside-the-box option while it's Maddox and McLeod over the top, who knows? To me, that's a very strong move. So I would say that Andrew Sendejo ranks above those so far. On to our next man though, and that is the return of Vinny Curry. The Eagles know the value of Vinny Curry better than any other team in the NFL, and there were reported reasons for his decline in Tampa Bay. Some of it was injury related, then you've got to factor into account that it's a new team, it's a new scheme, it's warm, probably, maybe. I'm just kind of clutching at straws here, but the Eagles know what they're getting out of Vinny Curry, and after vastly overpaying him the first time around, then seeing that, I think it was a $6 million cap hit off the top of my head in Tampa Bay, then getting him back even cheaper than that, like a quarter of that value, that's incredible. So the Eagles know what they're getting better than anyone because they've worked with him for 6 years. They know what he brings to the table. They know how he's a perfect fit now for this defense. And if his problem was not being able to finish plays and kind of carving up all these holes and allowing guys like Fletcher Cox and Timmy Jernigan at the time to feast, well, they need to do that again, but there's kind of added power interior, there's added power on the outside. This is a big move for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it may be the most underrated so far. On to our next one. We're on to the top 3. I know, it's getting tense. I'm excited, you're excited. I've had 4 sips of Thatcher's now, so we're basically hitting a home run for getting a bit drunk. The next one is Malik Jackson. So Malik Jax makes it to number 3, and for me, this is a huge move for the Eagles. It buys some optionality. It buys them an immediate replacement for Timmy Jernigan, who can play the 3-tech, who can play the 5-tech. Oh, I've just remembered I said LJ Fort played for the Jaguars, didn't I think? Or did I? See, you can tell I'm a little bit tipsy. LJ Fort did play for the Steelers. I just want to go back and recount that, so edit that in, Liam. Don't do that. This is getting a bit scruffy now. Anyway, Malik Jackson was the 3rd best signing of the offseason so far, just because he can, as I said, line up at 3-tech and 5-tech, provides that immediate explosiveness, and finally takes the weight off Fletcher Cox, who somehow had a career year despite having literally me standing next to him as a defensive tackle. So it's a big improvement, and it just kind of removes that weight of worry going into this draft that the Eagles need to double dip at defensive tackle, or that they need to maybe spend the first round asset on what is a very deep defensive tackle class. So Malik Jackson will come in. The big question now is, can they get the depth behind? And if they can, and they can get that rotation strong enough, there's no reason why this can't be the best, most dominant front 4 in the entire NFL. So the only reason this isn't higher is because it wasn't a position that was a direct, immediate need. Like, we know the team build through the trenches. We know they're going to find value. That's how they do. That's how they've always been since the start of the Doug Peterson era. The biggest home run hit that is not the number 1 selection so far is Jordan Howard. And that is a move that you just cannot find a single negative. It doesn't matter what lens you view it from. Actually, you can find a single negative because I did it in an article. The only negative I can find is that it's a solution for today and not tomorrow. The worry is now that if the Eagles don't draft a running back, or they draft one a little bit lower, and let's be honest, Wendell Smallwood and Donnell Pumphrey don't exactly give us the loveliest picture of running backs in Philadelphia so far this era, I think that the Jordan Howard move gives the Eagles a winning product for today. He's going to buy them a Super Bowl window. The guy has over 3,700 yards, that's so American to say, a 74% conversion rate in short yardage situations, averaging 4.3 yards out of the shotgun last year, despite that career low in yards per carry. The main benefits of this trade, of course, are 1, the compensatory pick, which is around a 4th rounder we can predict at least. So if the Eagles give up a 6th rounder to get him, and they get a 4th rounder back after a year of what could be roughly 1,000 yards if we're to go off averages, they're getting long-term profit for a huge short-term gain and a minor short-term loss. I don't see how that's a bad move. That is a perfect move for a back that has excelled in Chicago, that looks strong under Matt Nagy. I think the problem with it was last year that he was behind an offensive line that wasn't the most athletic. The amount of times he was swallowed up behind the line of scrimmage was actually kind of sickening, looking back at the film. And behind this offensive line, where it's designed to really execute at the second level, to pick up those blocks, to dominate in the screen game, I think Jordan Howard is going to really flourish as a north-south runner and remind people why he's going to secure such a big bag moving into next offseason. That's the only setback, though, is that the Eagles aren't going to be able to probably pay that. They've got a Carson Wentz extension looming, which I think should, if I'm honest, come this offseason. That would easily be the biggest offseason move they've made. However, they won't have the funds to just give to Jordan Howard that star money he deserves. So it's a rental, it's a short deal, but it's the long-term gain that stands out here. And that means, if you've been paying very close attention with your Eagles off-season bingo card, is the signing of Deshaun Jackson. That, for me, is still the Eagles' best off-season move so far. And it doesn't even come close, because finally they've invested in a position where they've just had to. We know this has been a need for so long. Since even before the end of the Chip Kelly era. You can see him, you know, Tipsy Liam is here, hello. The Doug Peterson era has craved for that WR2, and they've just not been able to find it in any means, and it's a real shame. And it doesn't matter whether it's Torrey Smith, whether it's Mike Wallace, whether it's going to be the failed Shelton Gibson, Dorial Green-Beckham, Bryce Treggs. They haven't been able to find that guy because they haven't invested significant resources into it. It's been cheap, short-term deals, and although Deshaun Jackson isn't going to be around forever, the fact that that deal has longevity, it has weight, it has sustenance, to me, that just says the Eagles are committed to opening up that offense and finally injecting a sense of speed down the field. And of course it buys some time to develop options, so maybe that's Mac Hollins. Maybe he's going to come in and develop under Deshaun Jackson. Maybe he'll get some snaps as a red zone threat. Or maybe after such a scintillating offseason, it will be Shelton Gibson that in his third year in the league can begin to make an impact. Who knows? Either of those guys could be. Maybe it's Andy Bella. I had to watch a second name there just purely for personal reasons. Andy Isabella. I think that would be a viable slot option for sure. I think that would be a very viable option for this team because if we're brutally honest here, we don't know what Nelson Aguilar's future is going to be. So Deshaun Jackson shores up one receiver need. We know that Alshon Jeffrey is your WR1. You've got your clarified WR2 for at least 3 years, which means you've got $9 million allocated in the slot, which at the very latest after next season, you can then reinvest elsewhere, or you can look at the developmental options. So whether that is Andy Isabella, whether that is going to be someone like Gibson or Hollins, we don't know. But I do feel if we're personally addressing this situation, that it's the best move for this team to make, because they don't know what they've got in Gibson truly, or Hollins, and it just buys some flexibility. There's nothing worse than throwing guys out there who just can't get it done. I mean, Marcus Wheaton at this point was seen as a somewhat near viable wide receiver 2 option. That was close to happening. That almost happened. It got to that level of desperation. The Eagles are no longer there. They're looking at luxury, and they can afford to just calm down, bring in a guy late in the draft, and really develop him and work during the offseason to get him up to speed at the NFL level. But I want to know your rankings, guys. What were your moves of the offseason ranks? So to recap, we had number 9, Ronald Darby, because reasons. Number 8, LJ, full stop. Number 7, Brandon Graham. Number 6, Richard Rodgers. 5, Andrew Sendejo. 4, Vinny Curry. 3, Malik Jackson. 2, Jordan Howard. 1, Deshaun Jackson. Where do your ranks lie? Type them in the comments. Let me know. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Tweet me at Liam Jenkins 21. Tell me how wrong I got this list. But before we get into that list, we need to focus on something a little bit more important. And that is, of course, thank you next. Now, I know there are some questions here, so let's get deep into them. We're going to start off with Will Roberts. Thank you next. Should we trade for a linebacker or draft one? Also, who would be your first round grab if Wilkins isn't available? Absolutely, we should draft one. Whether the Eagles do or not is a very different discussion. I feel like Devin Bush, to me at least, is the perfect fit here. He will be around at 25. Whether he goes off at 24, that would be heartbreaking. The Eagles could trade up. There's absolutely every chance they trade up to maybe pick 18, as I had in my latest mock draft with Minnesota. But I do think Devin Bush could be a fantastic fit for this team. If not, there are some great linebackers available later in this draft. Blake Cashman is the ultimate draft crush at this point. How you can't love Blake Cashman, I don't know. If you've not watched any film on him, if you've not seen highlights, please go to YouTube, search Blake Cash, man, because that's what he's going to make, that cash, man. Thank you. Next, we've got about 3 here from Brandon Celestine. I hope I can pronounce that right. The offensive line has been patchwork since 2017. Well, hold on a minute. No, it hasn't. They've had the same offensive line group since 2016, other than Brandon Brooks. You've had Peters, Sayamalo, and Wiz with whatever Chance Warmack's doing. Jason Kelsey, Brandon Brooks, and Lane Johnson. I don't think that's been patchwork. I think that's been injury hitting any offensive line. You lost both tackles at one point. You've lost both guards at some point. I think the Eagles have done very well to keep the same core 7 or 8 guys together. So I disagree with that sentiment, Brandon. I didn't mean to come off a little bit hostile there. That just triggered me a little bit. So will we see them finally... Hang on. Will we see them replace Jason Peters or Lane... Are you mad? Are you alright? Okay, I'm going to have to get a bit aggressive now. hang on a minute. Brandon, my man, dude. I mean, your profile picture on Twitter, you're standing over a lake, holding your arms really wide, okay, big wingspan. That's how much I disagree with you on this. Come on, man, they can't replace Lane Johnson. He's like a top 3 tackle in the league, if not the best. Jason Peters plays like a top 5 tackle. Jason Peters actually took a pay cut. Imagine that. Imagine if they cut him. After all these years, they finally get Jason Peters to take a pay cut, and then they get rid of him. Oh, that'd be heartbreaking. However, Brandon, I do think your comment does hold weight, and I think the Eagles will indeed draft an offensive lineman to prepare behind Jason Peters. Lane Johnson is going nowhere. That man is signed to like 2073 at this point, so he's going to be your franchise right tackle. That's where they prioritise. Jason Peters is still your franchise left tackle. To me, Titus Howard's the guy. Titus Howard is the guy. I've mock drafted him twice. I know that Jeff Stoutland loves the guy. They walked out. They went to his pro day. He is the underdog lineman, the project lineman that has played basketball, that has played other sports, maybe he's played golf, that has been a quarterback, that is now a lineman. He has got the feet, the athleticism, the mobility to be a real factor at the next level. So to me, Brandon, I think that it hasn't been patchwork, and I don't think they're going to replace Lane Johnson or Jason Peters, but I do think they will draft the eventual heir to the throne at left tackle if they don't believe that man is Vitae. You have asked a second question now, so thank you. Next, hello again. Would you consider Colin Would you consider Colin Kaepernick as a backup QB, or would you draft one? At this point, I think Kaepernick's been out of the league too long. It's one thing working out and staying in shape and staying fit. It's another thing coming back into the league, taking hits, going through training camp, especially after the drop-off he had. This isn't anything political. I'm a big Colin Kaepernick guy. I love what he's done. I love what he stands for. I completely agree with the sentiment, and I love that the fact that they were able to drag this out for so long and get something off the NFL, even if it was a settlement that I think should have been a lot higher. I don't think that the chance is there for Kaepernick to play in the league again because of that settlement, which is a real shame. He was a tremendous talent. We know he's been to a Super Bowl. We know how athletic he was, but there was that drop-off. There was that year where he's always had trouble reading defenses or seeing further down the field, and that came back to bite him. It's nothing to do with his political stance or his actual justification. Like, I totally agree with that, but he's just not the quarterback, let alone a backup quarterback that is going to bring, I think, unfortunately, the wrong kind of attention to an Eagles locker room that's so predicated on culture. Johnny Manziel, however, as someone that rocks a comeback season hoodie, that has, seen him go through the CFL and the AAF, if you want a project quarterback to bring in behind Sudfeld and get some immediate competition, why not? Like, what's that to lose? Obviously, you would need a very full evaluation as to whether or not he's ready, whether his mind's in the right spot. We know he's just split up with his wife, so is that going to be a thing? But I mean, Johnny Manziel has got the right skill set, I think, to actually be successful at this level. He was a first-round pick after all, and he was my favourite quarterback to come out of college watching. It was one of the first college quarterbacks I actually watched for him. And yeah, I can see that being a thing. If not, my guy Kevin Hogan. That is my ultimate quarterback hill to die on, that one day Kevin Hogan will get his shot in this league. He did great when he started for the Browns those couple times. I think that in the right situation he could be great. So if the Eagles somehow end up with Kevin Hogan, that'd be lovely. If not, I think Brett Ripien or maybe obviously Easton Stick out of North Dakota State. Those are going to be the two guys that the Eagles could be looking to draft. Obviously Easton Stick's probably a bit more plausible because he's been Carson Wentz's teammate before. But Brandon's not done. Thank you. Next, what are the chances Howie Roseman takes a top wide receiver to set up the future after Olshon and... Oh, God. Oh, no. It's happened again. They're not replacing Olshon, Brandon. They're not, alright. It's okay. Nelson Aguilar, maybe. And I think that's where Andy Isabella comes in. Again, tender name. But Andy Isabella, I think, would be the perfect replacement here. I actually love it. Him or Penny Hart. Penny Hart is being massively slept on out of Georgia State. And funny story, I have to go way back for this one. And I know we're kind of killing the whole thank you next vibe here because it's been way more than like 15 seconds. But I wanted NCAA 14 for so long. And being in England, it's really, really hard to get hold of for a million reasons. But obviously because it's region locked, like we can't get that over here on Xbox. So I remember I saw it listed on eBay on PlayStation 3 for £15. And I panicked and I bought it 2 years ago. I literally just bought the game, got really excited, realised I didn't have a PlayStation 3 to play it on. So then I had to go out, buy a PlayStation 3 just for that game. And now my PS3 library consists of NCAA 14, College Hoops 2K8, and NFL Head Coach 09. What more could you want, right? My first Dynasty mode on NCAA, Georgia State. And Penny Hart was an absolute god, so I have every faith that he's going to kill it at the next level, and I think he could be a great target to, I guess, let blossom behind Nelson Aguilar. Thank you. Next, Sean Lamont says, would you rather trade for Duke Johnson, re-sign Sproles, or draft a player of... Oh, that is filthy, Sean. I love that question. I would say... Oh, I just hit myself in the face with my phone. That was really painful. I don't know. I wouldn't re-sign Sproles. Duke Johnson and Jordan Howard in the same offense would be good, but I find them quite similar backs. Only Duke Johnson gives a little bit more versatility and burst. So it would be pointless having both of them there because they both would demand a workhorse load. So it doesn't make sense yet, at least. As of right now, I'm all in on Darrell Henderson. That is my guy. That is my running back. I'm hanging my hat on. I'm spilling the tea. That's the tea. There it is. Darrell Henderson in the second round with pick 57. Get the thing done. He's going to bring that exact skill set the Eagles need. He's going to be cheaper than Darren Sproles. That's the guy. That is the guy, I promise you. Although, Wesley Rosingo, I believe that's his name. He doesn't follow me there, so I don't know why I'm mentioning him. So, Wesley, if you're listening to this, alright, you look quite swanky in your picture. You've got a nice... It's an empty cup you're holding. You're holding an empty glass. My heart is empty because you're not following me. Change it. Not happy. DJJ all the way, he says. He's given him a nickname. Why has Duke Johnson got a nickname? I thought LJ was the only LJ nickname. DJ, no, that's not happening. I'm not having competition from a running back. He's been underutilised in Cleveland and would flourish in the Eagles system if they could get him for like a third round. No, we're not with Jordan Howard there. No. Dean Youngblood, I know Dean's a regular listener, says, what running backs are making the final 53? Who's going to be our RBBC after it's all said and done for the 19th season? My guess would be Jordan Howard, Darrell Henderson. They like Wendell Smallwood, so they'll probably keep him around. And Corey Clement. I think those would be the four guys. Because then you've got Smallwood and Henderson, who kind of fit the same. They don't fit the same mold, but they like to think Smallwood does. And then Corey Clement would kind of line up behind Howard. So you split that group in half, so each back has a backup. That would be the way I view it. So Josh Adams will be somewhere, probably doing something. Although, did I tell you, if you're new to this podcast, you missed it, when I got a very angry email from someone with the surname of Adams because I said that Josh Adams had injury problems, and it was a massive rant telling me how many awards he's won in college and how great he was in high school and that he once ran 99 yards. So that's the thing, I've hit that level now. But we're going to move on to our final segment. Thank you again if you're listening to this podcast. I don't know why you are at this point. There's been a bit of a mess because alcohol consumption, and it's been a slow news week. So if you appreciate this show, I appreciate you, and I promise I won't call you out for your Twitter picture holding an empty glass. But at Liam Jenkins 21 is where you can follow me and let me know how much you enjoyed or didn't enjoy this podcast, or leave an iTunes review, because that would be equally as helpful. Anyway, I have got 5 bold draft predictions. Oh yes, 5 bold draft predictions. Shall I repeat it? No, I won't repeat it a third time. But the NFL draft is rapidly approaching, and we all know Howie Roseman, as we would say in England, is a bit of a wheeler dealer. Alright? He likes to make trades. He likes to move about, sell some cards. See, this is English, right? Everyone thinks English accents are like, oh, tea and crumpets, fish and chips. Or as, you know, Spike Eskin on Art of the Take would say, Liam Jenkins! Which we need to have an accent battle with, Spike. If you listen to this, alright, it's on. Because I think you do a better Liam Jenkins voice than I do, and I won't stand for it. It's too much. But Howie Roseman is a bit of a dealer. Bit of a wheeler dealer. Bit of a man, bit of a gangster. Alright? Bit of a bruv. Bit of a I don't know, I've kind of run out of slang terms at this point. But we know how he likes to make some moves. He's like Cardi B. I couldn't remember the name of the song. I think it's Red Shoes, probably. But here are my 5 bold predictions for the Eagles draft. Ahem. We're going to be slow here. They're going to trade up from pick number 25 to take a defensive lineman. Oh, shock, horror, I know. Liam, they have Malik Jackson. Oh, Liam, but what about Bruce Hector? You've answered your own question there, gentle listener who's just said that in his head, or her head. I think this is a no-brainer, because at 25, the impact players the Eagles could get to start right away since the Jordan Howard trade have become minimal. It's literally limited to linebacker or safety. And given that they now have Sendejo, they don't need a starting safety, especially if they believe Avonte Maddox could be one. So for me, you trade up and you draft a position where Howie Roseman gets those binoculars out and he rubs his hands together and he knows he's got a home run. And that home run is Christian Wilkins. And that would be the hill I die on, that the Eagles will trade up from 25 to get that man. If there is a sign that he's going to fall, if there's a run on quarterbacks or there's a run on wide receivers, I think they trade up and they snag Christian Wilkins before a team like Minnesota, maybe even like Oakland, can go up and get him. Bold prediction number 2, that's not the only defensive tackle they're going to take. Oh, no, they're going to double dip. All right, they're going to put 2 fingers in the pie. Not for the first time, not for the last, you ladies' man, Howie Roseman. And they're going to pull out a nice, juicy defensive tackle. They're going to get a second one. Because then you're going to have Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, and then 2 draftees. Maybe a first. Imagine a first and a second round. Oh, just imagine. Imagine someone like Tillery. Get some artillery in there, am I right? That's huge. That's a rotation and it's development. You've then got arguably the best defensive tackle group in the league, and it's not even close. That would be huge for the Eagles. Number 3, a cornerback is on the move. But which cornerback is it? If you're asking me, I think it's Rasul Douglas. I think he goes before the draft in order to gain capital, or maybe shipped during the move up. But there are too many heads in that room. They say 2's company, 3's a crowd. The Eagles have got a bloody army there right now, and they need to shift someone because it's going to get a little bit feisty. And as we know, if you listen to this podcast, there's been some disgruntlement, some ruffled feathers with old Rasul. So as much as I love him, as much as I've been standing a move to safety, as much as I've had the GIFs and the videos on Twitter, and he's even retweeted one of them, so I've been kind of at the forefront of this Rasul Douglas / Captain Cravon Hive. I think he's going to be on the move, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Number 4, a quarterback will be drafted higher than you think. Maybe it's a 5th round pick. Don't be surprised. I think the Eagles value that position. Jeffrey Lurie said they want to get back to a spot like in the Andy Reid era where they're drafting a QB every year. That would not shock me. And finally, over 2.5 trades. If you're a gambling man, if you're a bit of a wheeler-dealer yourself, fancy yourself getting down the bookies, this is the move to make. Get your house, get your Jack Russell, get your wallet, take off the rubber band and slap it on the Eagles making over 2.5 trades from now till the end of round 7 of the NFL draft. And those are my bold predictions. You guys have been awesome. Probably you might not have been. You could have been listening to this doing some very dodgy things, which I hope you haven't, alright? But from myself, Liam Jenkins, who is now a full can of cider down and very lightweight, I just wanted to say thank you once again, because this podcast wouldn't be possible without you. It will always be for you. This is your show. I'm honestly really, really humbled and honoured that you listened, that you've given me a little nickname, that there are so many of you that enjoy this show. It is a pleasure to bring it to you every single week, and I promise you I'll be out in Philadelphia now before you know it, because I've got that much more free time and hopefully some increased revenue as well to come out and just enjoy this moment with you all. So thank you for lending me your ears, and hopefully they're not perforated by now. You can follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkins21. You can leave lovely reviews wherever you please. I'll see you next time after I've turned 24 years old. So see you soon.